Okay, everybody, now you want to flip to the end of your multiple choice practice test, and there were 3 short answer questions, and we're going to go over those now. So the first question had you read a little story about a food web, just like we've been practicing, and you had to write out the food web. I put pictures in mine, but that's okay if you don't obviously have pictures in yours. I'm assuming you don't. So you just need to have basically the right labels and then the right connection with the arrows. Okay, so let's start with the phytoplankton first. The phytoplankton does photosynthesis. So that means that the phytoplankton is a producer. So check your food web that you put the phytoplankton as a producer. Okay, the next thing you need to check is the zooplankton eats the phytoplankton. So go ahead and look for your zooplankton, and you should have that arrow pointing from the phytoplankton to the zooplankton. Okay, now because the zooplankton eats the producer, you want to make sure that you labeled your zooplankton as an herbivore, because if an organism is eating a plant or a producer, then it is an herbivore. So check that you've labeled it herbivore. Okay, next we have small fish eat the zooplankton. So find your small fish. The arrow should be pointing from the zooplankton to the small fish, and then you should have labeled it a carnivore. So double check that you've labeled it a carnivore because it is eating another organism. So it should be a carnivore. Okay. All right, next it says, while snacking on the zooplankton, the fish are eaten by small sharks. So I have my shark over here eating my small fish. So the arrow should be pointing from the small fish to the shark. Okay, and then because the shark is eating another organism, you should have labeled it as a carnivore. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Next, the sharks are killed and eaten by killer whales. So find your killer whale. The shark should be pointing to the killer whale. And then because the killer whale is eating another organism, it is a carnivore. Okay, it says blue whales glide through eating phytoplankton. So the blue whales are also eating the phytoplankton. So you should have an arrow pointing from phytoplankton to the blue whale. And since the blue whale is eating a producer, that makes it a herbivore. Okay? All right, and then the last part, it says the small portions of dead organisms float to the bottom where bacteria grows. And the bacteria is eating those dead things. So we should have bacteria. We should have called it a decomposer because it's decomposing the dead things. And then every single thing on this food web should be pointing to that decomposer. Okay. All right, now I want to keep reading my instructions. That's one thing I noticed that sometimes you guys are not doing is following all of the instructions. So I'm going to keep reading. It says label each organism as a producer, scavenger, omnivore, herbivore, carnivore, decomposer, and I did that. So that means I am done with question number 26. Okay, let's go to question number 27. So now you're going to take one of the food chains in your food web, the phytoplankton, the zooplankton, and then the small fish and the shark, and you're going to take that food chain and you're going to put it into an energy pyramid. So let's double check that you did that correctly. So look at your energy pyramid. You should have phytoplankton at the bottom. The producer always goes on the bottom every single time because plants make their own food, they make their own energy. So that means they always have to be at the base of every pyramid and every food web and food chain. Okay, so the phytoplankton are there. The zooplankton eats the phytoplankton. So there's one level of my food chain. Then the small fish eat my zooplankton. There's my next level of my food chain. And then at the top of my food chain, I have my shark, which are eating my small fish. Okay, I'm going to keep reading my question. The question says, if the small fish have 50 calories, how many calories do the others have? So I gave my small fish 50 calories. So that was really important that you put the 50 here, okay? And you didn't put it anywhere else on the energy pyramid. If you started down here with 50, then you would have gotten this whole thing wrong. So notice it says the small fish have 50. Now I have to follow my 10% rule, right? Let me do this in a different color. So if these guys have 50, I have to take 10% of that for the shark. The shark gets less, so it'll only have 5. Okay, but the zooplankton had more energy. It gave the small fish 10%. It gave it 50. So that means that the zooplankton had 500. And then I have to work backwards for the phytoplankton, which is going to have the most. So it would have 5,000. Okay, when you're taking 10% of something, remember, you're either, if you're taking 10%, you're taking away a 0. Okay, and then if you're multiplying by 10, you add a 0. So it should be just like that. Okay, all right, let's go to the last one, number 28. All right, it says that the small fish die off due to overfishing. So somebody fished too many small fish. It says choose 2 other species besides the zooplankton and the small sharks. I can't choose those. That would be affected by the small fish dying. Okay, so the first one is the phytoplankton. The phytoplankton, I chose this because it'll decrease because there will be more zooplankton to eat them. So let's go look in our food web. If the small fish die, the zooplankton will increase in number and there will be eating a ton of phytoplankton. Okay. All right, so that was my first one that I found. The second one I found were the killer whales. I said the killer whales population will decrease because there will be less small sharks because there's less small fish to feed the small sharks. So let's go look at that. So my small fish, again, they die. My sharks are going to go down because they're not going to have enough food to eat. And then my killer whales will also go down. Okay, there are other answers to that one that you could have chosen. So as long as you kind of explained it just like I did, then you're probably good to go. All right, at this point, if you feel confident with these short answer questions, then you can probably move on. But if you're not feeling confident, here is what I would suggest you do. In Class Kick, the assignments that go along with this would be your food web assignment. Sorry, that was supposed to say food web. Okay, so your food web assignment, specifically, I think it was the last slide, number 10, asked you a lot of questions about the energy pyramid and things like that. And then also, you had to make your own food web twice in the food web assignment. So if you still need a little help going back through your graded homework, seeing which ones you got wrong would be really helpful. And that's the assignment I would recommend reviewing. And then, of course, in your notes, there's lots of good stuff in there too that would help. Okay.